Part 1. The Council's Arrogance. The Great Chamber of Nexus Prime had seen many historic moments, but today would be remembered for all the wrong reasons. Ambassador Tae Kim stood quietly at the human delegation table, his hands folded in front of him. Around the massive circular room, representatives from 53 different species watched, waited, and whispered among themselves. Tae Kim had been Earth's voice in this chamber for 12 years. He had learned patience in that time. He had learned to smile when others dismissed his words. He had learned to bow his head when elder species called humanity children or newcomers, despite humans having been part of the council for 3 generations. Today, he would need all that patience. High Arbiter Velthar rose from the central platform. The crystalline being's body caught the light and scattered it across the chamber walls like broken rainbows. When Velthar spoke, his voice echoed with the weight of authority that came from leading the council for 200 years. "We have reviewed Earth's petition for access to advanced faster-than-light technology," Velthar announced. His tone was formal, cold. "The council has reached a decision." Tae Kim felt Dr. Hai Park shift beside him. She was Earth's chief scientist, a woman who had spent 40 years studying with the best minds in the galaxy. Her research had saved millions of lives across dozens of worlds. But here, in this chamber, her achievements meant nothing. "The petition is denied," Velthar continued. "Humanity lacks the emotional maturity required for such powerful technology. You are too quick to anger, too slow to think, too eager to fight. Perhaps in another few centuries, when your species has grown wiser, we will revisit this matter." The chamber filled with sounds of agreement. Clicking mandibles, humming vocal sacs, and crystalline chimes of approval. Tae Kim noticed that Council Member Thress, a large reptilian with green scales, was actually laughing. Not hiding it. Just openly laughing at humanity's rejection. Dr. Hai Park's hands clenched into fists under the table. Tae Kim placed his hand gently over hers. "Not now. Not here." "Furthermore," Velthar said, and Tae Kim felt his stomach sink, because there was more. "The Council has noted that human contributions to our collective knowledge have been minimal. Your medical advances are primitive. Your engineering solutions are inefficient. Your cultural offerings are strange and unwelcome. We question whether continued membership in this council serves any purpose beyond charity." The words landed like physical blows. Tae Kim had read the reports. He knew the truth. Human doctors had developed treatments for 17 different diseases in the past decade alone. Human engineers had solved problems that council experts had given up on. Human diplomats had prevented wars through quiet conversations that no one else wanted to have. But none of that mattered now. Thress leaned forward, his yellow eyes gleaming. "Perhaps the humans should return to their little blue planet and play among themselves for a few more millennia. Come back when you've evolved past your primitive emotions." More laughter followed his words. Tae Kim stood slowly. The chamber fell quiet. Everyone wanted to hear how the human would respond. Would he yell? Would he threaten? Would he prove their point about human emotionalism? "Thank you, High Arbiter," Tae Kim said, his voice calm and clear. "Thank you, honored council members. Earth has heard your decision. We have heard your wisdom. We have learned much from this council over the years." He paused, looking around the chamber, making eye contact with as many representatives as he could. "We will return home and consider our options carefully. Earth wishes the council continued prosperity and peace." That was all. No anger, no demands, no threats. Just polite words and a quiet dignity that somehow felt louder than any shout could have been. Velthar seemed almost disappointed. "You may leave, Ambassador." Tae Kim bowed his head slightly. Dr. Hai Park gathered their materials. Together, they walked out of the chamber, their footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Behind them, the whispers started immediately. "Did you see? No emotion at all. Perhaps they're finally learning their place. They'll be back within a week, begging for another chance." But Velthar watched the empty doorway where the humans had disappeared, and something bothered him. Something about the ambassador's eyes in those final moments. Not anger, not sadness. Something else entirely. Calculation, perhaps. or resolution. He shook the thought away. What could humans possibly do? They needed the Council far more than the Council needed them. In the human quarters of Nexus Prime, Kim closed the door behind them. Dr. Hyde Park finally let her anger show, pacing back and forth. 30 years, she said. 30 years I've given them my research, shared everything. And they call it primitive? I know, Kim said quietly. The Praxis colony plague last year. Remember? Council doctors couldn't figure it out. Couldn't stop it. Do you know who solved it? I know. I did. I sent them the cure. I didn't even put my name on it because I knew they wouldn't use it if they knew it came from a human. And it worked. Saved 2 million lives. And they call us primitive. Kim walked to his desk and activated his secure communication terminal. The encryption was human-made, of course. Better than anything the Council used, though they'd never admit it. Send a message to Earth, he told the system. Priority level maximum. Authorization code TE-Omega-7. The terminal beeped acknowledgement. Dr. Hyde Park stopped pacing. What are you doing? She asked. Kim looked at her, and she saw something in his expression that she'd never seen before. A weight lifting. A decision made. Something we should have done years ago, he said. But first, I need to send 3 words. His fingers moved across the terminal. 3 simple words that would change everything. Initiate protocol exodus. The message transmitted in a burst of encrypted data that shot through quantum channels toward Earth. It would arrive in seconds, spreading through every human colony, every human ship, every human outpost in known space. Dr. Hyde Park stared at him. Exodus? We're leaving? Not yet, Kim said. But we will be. We've been preparing for this possibility for 15 years. Ever since the Council first called us children, and we realized they would never see us as equals. Does Earth have a plan? Kim smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had carried a secret for too long and could finally share it. Oh yes, we have a plan, and the Council has no idea what's coming, or rather, what's leaving. He looked out the window at the stars beyond Nexus Prime. Somewhere out there was Earth, home. And soon, Earth would be just a memory in this part of space. They wanted us to be wise, Kim said softly. They wanted us to be mature, so we'll show them. We'll show them what human wisdom really looks like. And what's that? Dr. Hyde Park asked. Knowing when to walk away from people who will never respect you, no matter how much you give them, no matter how much you help them. Some people won't value you until you're gone. The terminal beeped with an incoming response from Earth. Just 2 words appeared on the screen. Acknowledged. Beginning. And in the Council chambers far above them, the representatives continued their meeting, completely unaware that they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. Part 2. Silent Preparations. 6 months had passed since the Council's rejection. Admiral Sung Choi stood in the command center of Armstrong Station, hidden in the dark reaches of the Kuiper Belt, and watched the construction display with satisfaction. 347 massive shapes hung in the darkness, each one larger than any city on Earth. Colony ships, humanity's future. Status report, Sung said to his second officer. Ship 201 through 215 completed their engine tests yesterday. All systems green. Ship 216 is having minor issues with the air recycling system, but engineer Wu Li says it'll be fixed by tomorrow. Sung nodded. Wu Li was the best. If he said tomorrow, it would be tomorrow. What about the Council observers? Sung asked. Still watching the inner system. They filed another report last week calling our activities typical human disorganization. They think we're just bad at building things. Sung allowed himself a small smile. Perfect. Let them think that. Let them believe humans were clumsy and inefficient. Meanwhile, out here in the darkness where Council sensors couldn't reach, humanity was building an evacuation fleet that would have shocked even their own people 3 years ago. On Earth, in a laboratory beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Na Yun stared at her calculations for the 100th time. The equations still looked impossible. They shouldn't work. Everything the council taught about faster-than-light travel said they shouldn't work. But they did work. "Run test 17, she said to her team. The laboratory hummed with power. In the center of the room, a small probe appeared in a flash of blue light. It had just traveled 20 light-years in 3 seconds using quantum entanglement and dark energy manipulation. A completely different approach than Council FTL technology. Better, faster, and most importantly, impossible to track. Na Yun's assistant checked the readings. Perfect jump. No energy signature detectable by Council sensors. The probe is transmitting clearly. Excellent, Na Yun said. Begin scaling up for full-size ships. We need this ready in 6 months. Her assistant hesitated. Doctor, even if we work around the clock, that's an incredibly tight schedule. I know, Na Yun replied. But we don't have a choice. Protocol Exodus is moving forward. Every human in Council space needs a way home, and we need to make sure the Council can't follow us. Around the galaxy, changes were happening. Small changes. Quiet changes. The kind nobody noticed until they were all added up. Human trade ships made their final runs and didn't return. Human families on Council worlds packed their belongings and took sudden vacations back to Earth. Human research stations sent their final reports and went silent. One by one, piece by piece, humanity was withdrawing from the galaxy like a tide, pulling away from the shore. In the Council chambers, a junior analyst named Krev noticed something odd in the trading reports. Human commercial activity had decreased by 30% in the last quarter. He brought it to his supervisor. Should we investigate? Krev asked. His supervisor barely looked at the report. Humans are probably having economic problems, not our concern. Mark it as low priority. On Mars, Captain Jin Kong oversaw the evacuation of the colony he'd called home for 20 years. 4 million people lived in the domed cities of Mars. Getting them all off-world without causing panic was a delicate operation. How are the families taking it? Jin asked his staff. Better than expected, his assistant replied. Most understand why we're leaving. Some are angry we're abandoning everything we've built here. Jin looked out at the red landscape beyond the dome. His children had been born here. He'd watched humanity terraform parts of this world, making it slowly more livable. Leaving felt like cutting off a piece of his heart. But staying felt like accepting the Council's disrespect forever. Remind everyone this isn't the end, Jin said. It's a new beginning. We're not running away. We're moving towards something better. Back on Nexus Prime, Ambassador Tae Kim continued attending Council sessions. He spoke less now. When asked questions, he gave simple, polite answers. When the Council made decisions, he nodded and took notes. Council member Thress found this amusing. Look at the human, he said to his colleagues. Finally learned his place. Quiet and obedient. But Velthar watched Tae Kim with growing unease. The ambassador's silence felt wrong somehow. It wasn't the silence of defeat. It was the silence of someone counting down to something. Dr. Hai Park submitted her final research paper to the Council Medical Archives. It contained the cure for 3 different genetic disorders that had plagued Council species for generations. She included detailed instructions, careful notes, everything anyone would need to save millions of lives. She didn't expect thanks. She wasn't doing it for gratitude. She was doing it because saving lives was what doctors did, even when the patients didn't respect the doctor. Her colleague found her in the lab afterward. Why give them anything? They called your work primitive. Because we're not like them, Hai replied simply. We don't help people because they deserve it. We help people because they need it. That's what makes us human. In deep space, engineer Wu Li made the final adjustments to Colony Ship 347. This one was special. This one would carry the last group of humans leaving Council space, including government officials, military personnel, and the cultural archives. Everything humanity had learned, created, and achieved would be on this ship. She's beautiful, his assistant said, looking at the massive vessel. She needs to be, Wu replied. She's carrying our history. The months moved forward like water flowing downhill. Inevitable, unstoppable. The Council noticed more oddities. Human populations on frontier worlds were decreasing. Human embassy staff were taking long leaves. Human ships were spotted in unusual places, always moving outward, away from council space. A council investigator finally raised concerns. Something is happening with the humans. We should look into it. The council security chief dismissed it. The humans are probably reorganizing their operations. If it were important, they'd tell us. After all, where would they go? They need us. That assumption would prove to be the most expensive mistake in galactic history. On Earth, in the old United Nations building, now empty of staff, a single message played on repeat. It had been recorded by Tai Kim during his last visit home. His words were calm and measured. To the species of the Council, should you ever find this message, we came to you in peace. We offered friendship, knowledge, and assistance. You taught us that some relationships are not meant to be. You taught us that dignity matters more than belonging. You taught us that we don't need your approval to be great. For these lessons, we thank you, but we will not stay where we are not valued. Goodbye. The message would keep playing for exactly one more month. Then, on the anniversary of the Council's rejection, it would shut off forever. Just like everything else human in Council space would shut off. Go dark. Disappear. Admiral Sung stood on the bridge of the flagship and looked at the readiness reports. All ships green. All personnel accounted for. All systems operational. Dr. Na Yun's FTL drives had been installed and tested. They worked perfectly. He opened a channel to Earth. This is Admiral Sung to command. We are ready. The response came back immediately. Acknowledged, Admiral. Stand by for final authorization. Sung looked at his crew. Young and old. Military and civilian. Scientists and engineers. All of them had worked for this moment. All of them had believed in a simple idea, that humanity deserved better. 3 more weeks, he told them. 3 more weeks, and we leave this part of space forever. Make sure everything is perfect. Make sure everyone knows what's happening. And make sure nobody tells the Council. Around the solar system, on every human world and station and ship, the message went out. The countdown had begun. In 21 days, humanity would make the largest coordinated movement of people in history. And they would do it in complete silence, without warning, without explanation, without giving the Council any chance to stop them or follow them. Captain Jin Kong received the message on Mars and smiled. Finally. Finally, they were going home. Or rather, going to find a new home where they could build something better. Something built on mutual respect instead of condescension. He looked at his children's pictures on his desk. They were going to grow up in a galaxy where being human meant something good, where their achievements would be valued, where their contributions would be recognized. That was worth leaving everything behind. In the Council chambers, business continued as usual. Debates about trade, arguments about territory, discussions about technology sharing. The usual political dance that had gone on for thousands of years. Nobody noticed that the human ambassador's smile had changed. Nobody noticed that he was saying goodbye to colleagues with unusual finality. Nobody noticed that humanity was about to do something unprecedented. The Council had taught humanity a valuable lesson about respect. Now, humanity was about to teach the Council a lesson about consequences. Part 3. The Exodus. The anniversary arrived on a Tuesday. Ambassador Tae Kim walked into the Council chambers for the last time, though nobody knew it yet. He wore his best formal suit, carried his diplomatic case, and smiled politely at the other representatives as he took his seat. High Arbiter Velthar called the session to order. Today's agenda includes trade route adjustments, the Kelm border dispute, and resource allocation for the upcoming festival of... High Arbiter, I request permission to make a brief statement, Tae Kim interrupted, standing. Velthar looked annoyed but nodded. Very well, Ambassador. Be brief. Tae Kim walked to the center, speaking platform. He looked around the chamber one last time, memorizing faces. Some had been kind to him over the years. Most had not. All of them had failed to see humanity's true value. 1 year ago, this council rejected humanity's petition for advanced technology access. You called us immature, primitive, unworthy. Today, I come before you to deliver humanity's response. The chamber went quiet. Finally, the humans were going to beg, or threaten, or something entertaining. Earth, Mars, Luna, Titan, Europa, and all human colonies formally resigned from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. We thank you for the lessons you have taught us. We wish you prosperity and peace. Goodbye. Velthar's crystalline body flickered with confusion. Ambassador, you cannot simply resign. There are procedures, negotiations, treaties to... All human treaties are dissolved as of this moment, Tae Kim said calmly. All human assets in council space are abandoned to your use. All human obligations are fulfilled or cancelled. We owe you nothing. You owe us nothing. We are done. Council member Thress laughed his familiar mocking laugh. Done? Where will you go, little human? Back to your one small planet? You need us. You need our trade, our technology, our protection. You'll be back within a month begging. Tae Kim looked at Thress directly. No, we won't. He placed a data crystal on the speaking platform. This contains all outstanding human research, all medical findings we haven't yet shared, all engineering solutions we've developed. It's yours. A parting gift. Use it or don't. We no longer care. Then Ambassador Tae Kim walked out of the council chambers. Dr. Hai Park and the other human delegates followed. Their footsteps echoed in the stunned silence. At that exact moment, across the entire galaxy, every human moved. On Nexus Prime, human embassy workers walked out of their offices, leaving doors unlocked and lights on. Human merchants closed their shops with signs that said simply, "Gone. Everything inside is yours." Human students left their dormitories, their textbooks stacked neatly on desks for whoever wanted them. Every human on the station moved toward the docking bays where ships waited. On Earth, the countdown reached 0. Admiral Sung gave the order. All ships, this is command. Execute Exodus. Go now, go fast, go far, and don't look back. 347 colony ships powered up simultaneously. Their new drives hummed with energy that council sensors couldn't identify. Blue light flickered around their hulls. In the space of 5 seconds, all of them vanished. No explosion. No dramatic light show. Just there one moment, gone the next. On Mars, Captain Jin Kang watched the last evacuation shuttle lift off. 4 million people, evacuated in 3 weeks without anyone outside the colony knowing. The domed cities still had their lights on. The hydroponics gardens still grew food. The museums still had their displays. But not a single human remained. Jin Kang's ship was the last to leave. He looked at the red planet one final time. Goodbye, Mars. Maybe someone else will appreciate you. His ship jumped to FTL and disappeared. The same scene repeated across the solar system. Luna's bases, empty. Titan's research stations, abandoned. Europa's underwater colonies, evacuated. The asteroid mining facilities, deserted. Every human facility left intact. Every city left functioning. Every piece of technology left working. But every human gone. The Council's observation ships near Earth sent frantic messages. The planet is dark. The cities are lit, but there's no movement, no ships in orbit, no communications. Where did they go? In the council chambers, chaos had erupted. Representatives shouted at each other. Velthar tried to restore order. Nobody could believe what was happening. Send ships to Earth immediately, Velthar commanded. Find out what's going on. It took 3 days for council ships to reach Earth. They found something that would haunt their nightmares for generations. An empty world. Cities with lights on timers. Traffic systems still operating with no traffic. Automated factories still producing goods for people who weren't there. Gardens being tended by robots. Libraries full of books with no one to read them. The council investigators walked through New York, Beijing, Lagos, São Paulo. Every city the same. Perfect. Functioning. Empty. In the center of Times Square, they found a holographic projector playing a message on loop. It was Tae Kim's face, life-sized and calm. To whoever finds this message, humanity thanks the Galactic Council for 40 years of membership. We learned much from you. We learned about advanced technology. We learned about galactic politics. We learned about different species and cultures. But most importantly, we learned about ourselves. The hologram paused. We learned that we don't need your approval to be great. We learned that we don't need your technology to advance. We learned that we don't need your respect to have dignity. We learned that sometimes the best response to disrespect is to simply leave. You wanted us to be mature. Here is our maturity. We choose not to argue with people who will never listen. We choose not to prove ourselves to people who will never be convinced. We choose not to stay where we are not valued. We leave you our cities. We leave you our research. We leave you everything we built in this part of space. May it serve you better than we did. Do not try to find us. Do not try to follow us. We are using FTL technology you cannot detect or track. We are going somewhere you will never find us. We are starting over, without you. This message will play for 1 month, then shut down forever. Just as our relationship with the Council has shut down forever. Goodbye. Good luck. You're going to need it. The hologram flickered off, then started again from the beginning. The Council investigators stood in the empty square, surrounded by functioning buildings and absent people, and felt something they'd never expected to feel about humans. Fear. Back on Nexus Prime, the Council met an emergency session. Velthar's voice was shaking. How many humans were in Council space? 11,400,000,000, an analyst reported. All gone, simultaneously, using FTL technology we can't identify. Find them, Thresh shouted. Send every ship we have. Search every system. We've tried, the military commander said quietly. Their FTL leaves no trail. No energy signature, no gravitational disturbance, nothing. It's like they jumped into another dimension. They could be anywhere in the galaxy, or beyond it. Council member Mishan, who had once been human liaison officer, spoke for the first time. They planned this for years. That's what they were doing when we thought they were being inefficient. They were preparing to leave us. But why? Velthar asked. What did we do that was so terrible? Mishan looked at him with something like pity. You called them primitive. You dismissed their achievements. You mocked their contributions. You treated them like children who should be grateful for your attention. And when they asked for equal access to technology, you called them immature and denied them. That was for their own good, Velthar protested. No, Mishan said. It was for your pride. You needed someone to look down on, someone to feel superior to. Humans were convenient because they were new, and now they're gone. And we're about to discover just how much we needed them. In deep space, far beyond Council sensors, the human fleet regrouped. 347 colony ships, 89 research vessels, 200 military escorts, 11 billion people on their way to a new home. Admiral Sung stood on the bridge of the flagship and watched the stars. They were heading toward a dwarf galaxy that Council species had never bothered to explore. It was too far, too small, too unimportant. Perfect for a fresh start. Dr. Na Yun approached him. Admiral, all ships reporting successful jumps. 0 casualties, 0 malfunctions. We did it. Sung nodded slowly. Yes, we did. Now comes the hard part. Building a new civilization? No, Sung said. Not looking back. Not wondering if we made the right choice. Not letting the Council's opinion of us define us anymore. Captain Jin Kang's voice came over the fleet-wide channel. This is Captain Jin to all ships. I've been asked to read a message from Earth Command. It's short. A pause. We left with dignity. We arrived with hope. We will build with wisdom. We are human, and that is enough. Across the fleet, 11 billion people heard those words. In the observation decks, in the residential quarters, in the engine rooms and medical bays, humans stopped what they were doing and smiled. They were free. Behind them, the Council was discovering what life without humanity looked like. It was about to get very dark, very fast. On Part 4, the cracks begin to show. 5 years passed. The council tried to forget about humanity. They removed the empty human seat from the chambers. They deleted human names from official records. They pretended 11 billion people hadn't simply vanished into the darkness. But the galaxy remembered. And the galaxy was changing. The first crisis hit the planet Velthar Prime, homeworld of High Arbiter Velthar himself. A disease outbreak that started small grew rapidly into a plague. Council doctors examined it and found something horrifying. They'd seen this disease before, 20 years ago, and they'd cured it. Or rather, they thought they'd cured it. The head medical officer stood before Velthar, his crystalline body dim with shame. High Arbiter, we have a problem. The treatment we've been using for plasma fever doesn't work anymore. The disease has mutated. And we've just discovered something. We never actually understood the original cure. We were just following a protocol. What protocol? Velthar asked. One that appeared in our medical database 20 years ago. We thought it came from our own researchers. But I've checked the records. It came from Dr. High Park, the human doctor. She never told us. She just quietly solved our problem and moved on. Velthar felt something cold settle in his core. Can you modify the treatment? We're trying. But without understanding the underlying principles, High Arbiter, we need at least 6 months. Maybe longer. The plague killed 2 million people before council doctors finally developed a new treatment. It should have killed 20 million. It would have if human protocols hadn't been in place for dozens of other diseases that were still being quietly managed by systems humans had set up years ago. Systems that were starting to fail without human maintenance. Merchant Lord Kress saw the economic problems before anyone else. He dealt in rare materials, shipping them between systems. His profit margins had always been thin because the dangerous routes through unstable space were expensive to navigate. Then he realized something. Those routes hadn't been expensive for the last 30 years. They'd been easy, safe even. He pulled up old shipping records and started cross-referencing them. What he found made his blood run cold. 70% of the safe routes through dangerous space had been pioneered by human cargo ships. Humans had mapped the hazards, calculated the safe windows, and shared that data freely. Everyone had used it without thinking about where it came from. Now those routes were becoming dangerous again. Solar flares that humans had predicted and warned about went unnoticed until ships were destroyed. Gravitational anomalies that humans had been tracking shifted without anyone monitoring them. Pirate activity increased in areas that humans had been quietly patrolling. Kress brought his findings to the Council Trade Committee. They dismissed him. The humans are gone. We managed trade for thousands of years before they arrived. We'll manage now. 6 months later, 3 major shipping companies declared bankruptcy. Trade between sectors decreased by 40%. Prices for basic goods doubled. The council finally assigned an investigator to look into it. Her name was Mi-Shan. She'd been human liaison officer before the Exodus. Now she worked independently, trying to understand what had happened to her former friends. The council hired her because she was the only one who might know where to look. What she found was worse than anyone imagined. Mi-Shan spent 3 months going through old records, cross-referencing data, tracking down sources. She compiled her findings into a report that should have been a warning bell, loud enough to wake the dead. In the past 50 years, humans have contributed to 2,847 major technological breakthroughs in council space. Of these, 2,103 had human scientists as primary researchers. However, only 412 officially credited humans. The rest either credited council scientists who used human data, or had no credit listed at all. Furthermore, humans have prevented an estimated 47 potential conflicts through diplomatic intervention. Most of these interventions were never officially recorded. Humans simply talked to the right people at the right time and problems quietly disappeared. Humans operated 634 automated monitoring stations in dangerous sectors of space. These stations tracked gravitational anomalies, solar activity, and potential threats. All of these stations went dark when humans left. We haven't replaced a single one. Humans provided primary medical care to 23 council species who didn't have doctors specialized in their own biology. When humans left, these species had to relearn how to treat themselves. In summary, we didn't just lose humans. We lost the infrastructure they built, the knowledge they freely shared, and the problems they solved before we even knew they existed. Mishan submitted her report to the council. It was filed under historical interest and largely ignored. That was a mistake. 2 years after Mishan's report, the Kelm incident happened. The Kelm were an aggressive species on the border of council space. For decades, they'd been making territorial claims and military threats. The council had always managed to keep them contained through a combination of diplomacy and strategic positioning. What the council didn't know was that human intelligence officers had been tracking Kelm military movements for 30 years. Humans had been the ones predicting when the Kelm would make moves. Humans had been the ones suggesting where to position council forces to discourage aggression. Humans had been the invisible hand keeping the peace. Without that hand, the Kelm made their move. They invaded 3 border systems simultaneously, overwhelming council defenses that were positioned in completely the wrong places. By the time the council military responded, 400,000 people were dead and 5 colonies were occupied. The war lasted 3 years. The council eventually won, but at tremendous cost. Billions of credits spent. Hundreds of thousands of lives lost. Entire fleets destroyed. A single council military analyst, going through old intelligence records, found something that made him physically sick. He found a report from 8 years ago, from a human intelligence officer, warning about exactly this scenario, suggesting exact defensive positions that would have stopped the invasion before it started. The report had been dismissed as human paranoia. Council member Thress, who had laughed at humanity's departure, found himself facing an angry population demanding to know why the government had been so unprepared. He went looking for answers and found Mishan's report, which he'd never read before. He spent 3 days reading it. Then he spent a week going through the archives himself, checking her sources. Everything she'd written was true. Worse, it was incomplete. The more Thress dug, the more human contributions he found. Medical research, engineering solutions, diplomatic interventions, safety protocols, educational materials, cultural exchanges that had prevented misunderstandings between species. Humans had been the glue holding galactic civilization together, and nobody had noticed because they'd done it so quietly. Thress called a private meeting with Velthar. The High Arbiter had aged badly in the past 5 years. His crystalline body was clouded, his light dim. "We need to find them," Thress said without preamble. "We need to bring them back." "We've tried," Velthar replied wearily. "We've sent expeditions to every corner of known space. Nothing. It's like they vanished into another universe. Then we search unknown space. With what resources? We're fighting a war. Our economy is struggling. Our infrastructure is failing. We don't have unlimited ships to send on hopeless searches." Thress sat down heavily. "Then we're doomed." "Perhaps," Velthar said. "Or perhaps we learn to manage without them." "We can't," Thress said flatly. He pulled up Mishan's report on his display. "Have you actually read this? Really read it? Humans weren't just members of the council, they were essential to its function, and we called them primitive." Velthar was quiet for a long moment. "I know. I've known for 3 years, since the medical crisis, but what can we do? They're gone. And they made it very clear they don't want to be found. We could admit we were wrong. To who? They can't hear us. And even if they could, why would they care?" That was the question that haunted them both. Why would humans care what the council thought anymore? They'd left. They'd moved on. They'd built something new somewhere the council couldn't find them. The council had taught humanity that their respect wasn't worth having. Across council space, problems continued to multiply. Medical crises, economic troubles, security failures, infrastructure breakdowns, each one small enough to handle. But together, they were overwhelming. The council had survived for 10,000 years. It had weathered crises before. It would survive this too. But it would never thrive again. Not like it had when humanity was part of it, quietly fixing problems and making everything work just a little bit better. Mishan stood in the empty human embassy on Nexus Prime. Nobody had cleaned it out. Nobody had reassigned the space. It just sat here, a memorial to absence. She walked through the rooms, looking at the furniture humans had left behind, the artwork on the walls, the books in the library. All of it left for whoever wanted it. In Ambassador Tae Kim's old office, she found a handwritten note tucked into a desk drawer. It was addressed to whoever finds this. The note was simple. We didn't leave because we hated you. We left because staying was killing us, slowly, quietly. Death by 1,000 dismissals. We left to save ourselves. We hope you understand someday. We hope you learn to value each other better than you valued us. Goodbye and good luck. Mishan sat in Tai Kim's old chair and cried. She cried for her friends who were gone. She cried for the council that had been too blind to see what it had. She cried for the future that might have been, if only people had been kinder. Outside, the galaxy continued its slow unraveling. The cracks were showing. The foundation was crumbling. And humanity was somewhere out there, beyond reach, building something better. The council had won its argument with humanity, and in winning, it had lost everything that mattered. On Part 5, Too Late, The Error. 20 years. 2 decades since humanity had disappeared from council space. The galaxy had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. The Galactic Council still existed, but barely. 12 species had withdrawn to form their own alliances. 2 sectors were engaged in open warfare. The economy had never recovered from the loss of human trade routes. Medical science had stagnated without human research. The great unity that had defined the Council for millennia was fracturing. High Arbiter Velthar was old now. Very old. His crystalline body was more gray than clear, his light flickering weakly. He'd stayed in his position longer than he should have, hoping to somehow fix what he'd broken. But you couldn't fix something when half the pieces were missing. And then, after 20 years of silence, a message arrived. It was simple. Just coordinates in deep space, far beyond any explored system. And a single line. 1 meeting, final offer. Come if you wish. The signature was Admiral Sung Choi. Velthar assembled a delegation. Council member Thress, now gray with age himself. Mi Shan, who'd never stopped researching what had happened. A dozen other representatives from species that had survived the past 2 decades. They traveled for 3 weeks to reach the coordinates. What they found there took their breath away. A space station, but not any design the council used. It was elegant, efficient, beautiful. It combined elements from every species humanity had ever met, plus innovations nobody had seen before. It hung in the darkness like a jewel, powered by energy sources that made council sensors go haywire. They docked and were escorted by human security officers to a large meeting room. Windows showed the stars beyond. In the distance, they could see other structures, stations, shipyards, what looked like the beginnings of orbital habitats. Admiral Sung Choi entered the room. He was old now, too, his hair completely white, but he stood straight and strong. Behind him came Dr. Na Yoon, Engineer Wu Li, and Captain Jin Kang. And behind them, moving slowly with a cane, came Ambassador Tae Kim. Velthar felt something crack inside him at the sight of Tae Kim. The man he'd dismissed so easily 20 years ago now looked at him with the eyes of someone who'd built empires. "Thank you for coming," Tae Kim said, his voice still calm and measured. "Please, sit." The council delegation sat. The humans remained standing. "You wanted to see us," Velthar said. "Why? After 20 years of silence, why contact us now?" Admiral Sung gestured to the windows. "Because we wanted you to see what you lost, what you could have been part of. But also because we have something to tell you." He activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air between them. Star systems, planets, stations, ships. In 20 years, humanity has made first contact with 17 new species, Sung said. "We've established the Free Alliance, a coalition based on mutual respect and equal partnership. We've colonized 43 worlds in this dwarf galaxy. We've advanced our technology by what you would consider 50 to 100 years beyond council level. He showed images of species the Council had never seen. Some humanoid, some not. All working together on projects that made Council engineering look primitive. We've cured diseases you still struggle with, Dr. Nayun added. We've developed FTL technology that makes Council drives look like toys. We've created art, music, and literature that would astound you. We've done all of this without you, without your approval, without your permission. Thress found his voice. Then why show us? Why contact us at all? Captain Jin Kong stepped forward. Because 3 days ago, our long-range sensors detected something. The Kelm Dominion is preparing another invasion. Bigger than before. And they're not aiming for the border territories this time. They're planning to strike at the Council core worlds. He showed tactical displays, fleet movements, troop buildups, invasion plans. We estimate you have 6 months before they attack. Your defenses are in the wrong positions. Your intelligence is outdated. Your military is exhausted from 20 years of conflicts. Without help, you'll lose. The Council delegates sat in stunned silence. Why tell us? Mishan asked quietly. After everything we did to you, why warn us? Tae Kim finally sat down, his old bones grateful for the chair. Because we're not you. We don't leave people to die out of pride or spite. We don't withhold help because we're angry. That's what you did to us. That's not what humans do. He gestured to the holographic display. This contains everything you need to defend yourselves. Kelm fleet positions, updated defensive strategies, technical specifications for weapon systems that can counter their ships, medical protocols for treating their biological weapons. Everything. Velthar stared at the data. You're just giving this to us? For free? Yes, Tae Kim said simply. But why? Velthar's voice cracked. We rejected you. We mocked you. We dismissed everything you contributed. We called you primitive and immature. We drove you away. Why would you help us after all that? Dr. High Park, who'd been silent until now, spoke. Because we're doctors, engineers, and diplomats. We save lives because lives are worth saving. Not because people deserve it. Not because they'll thank us. But because it's the right thing to do. Furthermore, Admiral Sung added, we don't want the guilt of watching you fall when we could have prevented it. We left to save ourselves, not to destroy you. Your failures are your own. We won't add to them by withholding information that could save millions of lives. Thress put his head in his hands. We were so wrong about you. Yes, Tae Kim agreed. You were. Velthar looked at the human delegation. Really looked at them. These people had built a new civilization from nothing. They'd made alliances with species the Council had never even found. They'd advanced beyond Council technology. They'd succeeded in every way that mattered. Will you come back? He asked, knowing the answer but needing to ask anyway. Will you rejoin the Council? We need you. The galaxy needs you. I realize that now. Too late, I know, but I realize it. Tae Kim shook his head slowly. No, we won't come back. The Council taught us that we don't need you to be great. That lesson is too valuable to forget. But we could change, Velthar said desperately. We could make reforms. We could ensure that what happened to you never happens to anyone else. Could you? Tae Kim asked gently. Really? Or would you just fall back into old patterns once the crisis passes? Once you don't need us anymore, would you go back to calling us primitive? Velthar had no answer to that. Here's what we'll do, Admiral Sung said. We'll give you this intelligence. We'll give you the tools to defend yourselves. We'll even send anonymous aid if you need it during the invasion. But we won't return. We won't rebuild the relationship you destroyed. Our alliance is open to all species that approach us with respect, Dr. Nayun added. If Council species want to join us individually, they're welcome. But the Council as an institution? No, that door is closed. Engineer Wu Li handed Velthar a data crystal. Everything you need is on here. Defensive positions, weapon specifications, battle tactics. We've even included some of our newer technology, scaled down to what your infrastructure can handle. Use it well. Mishan spoke, her voice thick with emotion. I've spent 20 years studying what we lost when you left. writing reports nobody read, trying to make people understand. It broke my heart. Can I ask, are you happy in your new home? Captain Jean Kang smiled. Yes, very happy. We've built something beautiful, something based on mutual respect. Every species in our alliance has equal voice. Nobody is called primitive. Nobody is dismissed. We learn from each other. We grow together. It's what we wanted from the council and never got. We have children growing up who barely remember the council, Dr. High Park added. They're learning about it in history classes as a cautionary tale, about the importance of respect, about the danger of arrogance. You're a lesson we teach our young people about what not to become. The words stung worse than any accusation could have. Tae Kim stood slowly, leaning on his cane. This is goodbye, High Arbiter. For real this time. We gave you one more chance to see what you lost. One more chance to understand your mistake. Learn from it. Teach your young ones to value every species. Don't let pride blind you to worth. The human delegation turned to leave. Wait, Velthar called out. His voice was broken. I'm sorry. I know it means nothing now, but I'm sorry. We were wrong. About everything. You were never primitive. You were never immature. You were the best thing that ever happened to the council and we threw you away. Tae Kim paused at the door and looked back. I believe you. I believe you're sorry. But sorry doesn't rebuild 20 years. Sorry doesn't bring back what we could have built together. Sorry doesn't change the fact that you only valued us after we were gone. You're right, Velthar said. But I wanted you to know anyway. You deserved better from us. All of you did. Ambassador Tae Kim nodded once. Thank you for saying so. Goodbye, High Arbiter. I hope the council survives. I hope you learn. I hope the next species you meet gets treated better than we were. Then he walked out, and the other humans followed. The council delegation sat in silence for a long time, holding the data crystal that might save their civilization. Finally, they returned to their ship and made the long journey home. Using the intelligence humans provided, the council prepared for the Kelm invasion. When it came 6 months later, they were ready. The battle was hard, but they won. Millions of lives were saved by human intelligence and human technology. The council erected a monument on Nexus Prime. It stood in the center of the council chambers, where everyone could see it. A simple chair, carved from dark stone, empty and waiting. The inscription read, "The Empty Chair," a reminder that respect must be given before it is lost. In memory of humanity's 40 years with the council, and in recognition of the lessons learned too late. Council children grew up learning about the humans, about the species that had helped everyone, asked for nothing, and left when they weren't valued. It became the most important cautionary tale in council education. Treat others with respect, teachers told their students, or lose them forever. And far away in a dwarf galaxy the council would never find, humanity continued to build, explore, and grow. They made new friends. They shared knowledge freely. They helped species that asked for help. They remembered where they'd come from, but they didn't let it define them. They'd left without a sound, and the silence had taught the galaxy more than any words ever could. Sometimes the greatest lesson is learned not through what is said, but through what is lost. The council had learned that lesson. Too late, they had learned it. But they had learned it nonetheless. And that would have to be enough.